Welcome back to Hypothetically Sound Presents Nerd Shit, and welcome back to another installment of the Is Hagrid a Death Eater series. As always, I'm joined with Alek and our mother for
Hi.
this Hagrid series.
Hi.
You gonna say hi?
I did
Hi.
once again. Can you not hear me again?
No, you weren't there. Let's start over. Just gotta make sure the mic's close to your mouth. It sounds like it's
It is.
sensitive.
It's a noise canceling headset. Sorry.
Okay. Welcome back to Hypothetically Sound Presents Nerd Shit, and welcome back to another installment in the Is Hagrid a Death Eater series. As always, I'm joined by Alek, and we're joined with our mother. How you guys doing?
Good. I'm here.
Yeah, that's all that matters, really. You're alive. That's
I
all
am.
we can ask for.
Yeah, so you can ruin my day again, ruin my night.
Yeah, if Hagrid wasn't such a bad guy, he wouldn't be in this situation. But anyways, last time we looked at the Goblet of Fire, how Hagrid helped Moody set up Harry. Pretty obvious, if you ask me, how he actually was the one that had Voldemort's wand this entire time. Pretty obvious, if you ask me. Uh, in this episode, we're going to look at the Order of Phoenix, and if time permits, we'll look at the Half-Blooded Prince as well. So how are you feeling so far about this series, Mom?
I think you guys plan to do revenge on me and take the character I like the most and try to destroy my inner peace. Other than that, it's good.
Well, let's just hop right into it.
Yeah, let's do it.
So in the Order of Phoenix, we see the following from Hagrid. Hagrid is a capable, covert actor, not the bumbling oaf he acts like, and Hagrid is feeding operational plans and intelligence to Voldemort. So the evidence he has for Hagrid is an expert at using covert techniques. In the past, Hagrid has seemingly shown a remarkable lack of tact, ability at deception, and awareness of his surroundings. He blabs to the trio about the Philosopher's Stone and roars out private information about Sirius Black. It is implied he lacks the ability to be aware of his surroundings and generally has poor judgment, even though all of his mistakes coincidentally help Voldemort. However, we have direct evidence Hagrid has a high level of proficiency in conducting covert action, which throws these past incidents into serious question. Hagrid was a member of the Order of the Phoenix since the first Wizarding World. Presumably in a capacity as a member, he took part in numerous operations on behalf in which secrecy was the utmost importance, and in which he continued to do so in the Second Wizarding War. He was entrusted with extremely sensitive operations such as the Seven Potters Plan and secret negotiations with the Giants. The story of his negotiations with Giants gave us plenty of evidence of Hagrid demonstrating strong situational awareness, brilliant judgment, and an ability to negotiate and lie. Hagrid recognized during his excursion to the Giants that he and Madame Maxine were being tracked by the Ministry of Magic. Hagrid then successfully conducted counter-surveillance techniques to throw off seasoned Ministry officials, all while being half-giant and standing out like a sore thumb. Once arrived, Hagrid and Maxine managed to succeed in initial negotiations with the Giants until the Death Eaters interfered, at which point they escaped. Upon his return, Hagrid kept the mission and his brother concealed from the Ministry of Magic. In contrast to his past betrayal, Hagrid has now demonstrated great skill at covert action, the situational awareness and ability to counter-trained career law enforcement officials, and the ability to be tactful, negotiate, and lie convincingly as needed. Every time Hagrid makes a mistake when he lets slip information, he ultimately and predictably serves Voldemort's ultimate goals. Outside of these circumstances, he is extremely capable and thus demonstrates that his slip ups are proposed to support Voldemort under the guise of being clumsy or hot headed. So, what he's essentially saying with this take and during most of the book is that everything that's happened up to this point of Hagrid being this oaf, this guy who can't be trusted, is a lie. He was trusted to go talk to the giants and be their negotiator, which partly has to do with him being half giant, him and Madame Maxine. But having, like they said, having the ability to, as two half giants, be able to ditch the Ministry of Magic, who can track your magic, and track you, certainly impressive, and leads to other things that have been mysterious about Hagrid in the past, with his ability to do things that he shouldn't be able to do. And I think the big thing that, like, he touched on a little bit, for someone who can't do magic, how did he get a, albeit smaller giant, but still a full giant, how did he get him back to Hogwarts?
That's a good question. Mom, what do you think?
You know, why in all of this is it just me and Randy talking, and Alec never has any?
Because I'm not as big of a nerd for this as you. I have no attachment to Hagrid or even Harry.
Alex, the unbiased judge, he will weigh in at the very end and give his determination.
Not only that, my favorite character dies in the series, so like,
yeah, in this book, to be specific.
Oh yeah. True. No, okay, so we've already talked about how Hagrid, yes, he was expelled from Hogwarts, therefore could not perform magic. But and you covered kind of how, Tom Riddle and Voldemort, same person, that Hagrid, maybe learning dark arts from them and has learned dark arts spells, as you said, from Voldemort.
Mm-hmm.
But I still stand by, he couldn't learn any other kind of magic, and he loved that part of the world. He loved magic. And so he's going to get it from wherever he can. And if he's with somebody that has persuaded him, aka Tom Riddle at the time, I'm sorry, thank you for not saying anything, but here's what I can do for you, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And was teaching him how to do wizardry without having to be verbal. So it's still possible that everything he learned before Voldemort came after Harry, or Harry's parents to begin with.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. All the magic he learned was prior to Voldemort becoming Voldemort. So Tom Riddle became Voldemort. But that leads credence into the fact that Hagrid is actually a spy for Voldemort.
Why?
Like, he can still care for Harry because he, like, you see Snape shows that he cares for Harry a little bit. Like, it's still possible to care for Harry while being a spy for Voldemort.
Yeah, but just like Snape was doing the double duty being a spy, and Dumbledore knowing that, why couldn't it be the reverse where Hagrid was kind of feeding information and to Voldemort at the direction of Dumbledore?
Because that's what Snape was doing.
Snape was watching and was there to try to coerce things.
No, you have to remember in the next few books, it shows, especially the last book, that Dumbledore directed, like, once Snape came to beg Dumbledore to save the Potters, to save Lily, he became the servant of Dumbledore, not Voldemort.
Right,
And he says he would do whatever. It's still at this point, the entire time. Once he begs for it, he becomes, like, Dumbledore even says it. Like, in the movie, in the books, they try to make Dumbledore look very heartless at that point. He says, "You will be my servant. You will betray Voldemort for me." So everything that Snape does through the entire series is on Dumbledore's order, not going back, waiting, then going back after Voldemort's been alive to tell about the Seven Potters plan, to tell them what house is the Filadelius charm, where they're going, and stuff like that. Is all from Snape.
Okay, and they couldn't have used Hagrid the same way.
No, I believe it was the opposite. Like, I believe it was the complete opposite. That Hagrid was feeding misinformation to Dumbledore, and that's why Dumbledore was always seemed to be a step behind Voldemort.
Good point. Good point. Any rebuttal?
But was he really, or was he just letting the courses that needed to happen happen, knowing that the only one that could take Voldemort out was Harry, and knowing Harry had to learn things through experience, and Dumbledore always seemed to be there at the end, which means he was there for the whole thing to make sure that nothing happened with Harry and Hermione and Ron to get them to where they needed to be,
So
to
which
prepare them, to prepare them. So
I just go ahead. Sorry.
I still think that a lot of what Hagrid did was at the direction of Dumbledore, and he had to play that role to Voldemort. He who should not be named. To Voldemort to keep the Voldemort off kilter.
Oh no,
To
it
kind
just
of
seems
send him
like
on the
to
wrong path.
have, because then you would have them having contradictory information. You would have Snape going and telling Voldemort one thing, and then you have Hagrid telling him another thing. And we've already seen there's an instance where uh, Snape and another Death Eater give contradictory evidence, and he believes Snape over him and punishes the other guy. And so, when they're talking about the Seven Potters plan, uh, so if there was this instance of Dumbledore telling Hagrid and Snape to go tell him two separate things,
Could be the same thing. It just confirms it.
it just that seems more far fetched than because and it's the thing, like
More far fetched than
Hagrid being used by Tom Riddle and Voldemort makes 100% more sense than Voldemort believing anything Hagrid tells him because he's half giant.
but Voldemort was telling Hagrid stuff according to you that Hagrid would go and leak.
Yeah.
So if Snape was taking stuff back to, okay, so maybe I said that wrong to begin with. Snape was taking information at Dumbledore's discretion
Mm-hmm.
back back to Voldemort, and then Voldemort would tell Hagrid if he was there, and as a spy or whatever, that here you need to have Harry here, or this information needs to go out, and that's where that circle went. And who's to say that Hagrid didn't go back to Dumbledore first and say, "Well, this is what I'm supposed to do," and Dumbledore said, "Well, this is how you do it." I think Dumbledore did a lot more than what she wrote in the book.
Yeah, it's possible. So next point he hits on is Hagrid's failure in recruiting the giants. In he goes in book 5, Hagrid's Tell. Hagrid recounts his journey to most likely somewhere in the Ural Mountains in an attempt to offer valuable and rare gifts to persuade the giants not to uh, ally with Voldemort. The negotiations are very successful at first. Hagrid and Maxime have a friendly encounter, provide an indestructible goblin-made helmet as a gift, and plan more meetings immediately after this great start. Fights break out amongst the giants, and the leader is killed. A new leader takes over who doesn't want to negotiate with Hagrid. Instead, Death Eaters arrive and successfully recruit the giants while ousting those who disagree. The only problem, this story suffers because Hagrid is an unreliable narrator, and the consequences he recounts are unbelievable. Or coincidences he recounts are unbelievable. Hagrid says early in the chapter that while the Giants' locations are not secret, most people do not know where they are. Even Hagrid, a half giant from his tribe, who does not know where they are, somehow that even Hagrid, a half giant from this tribe, does not know where they are. Somehow, Voldemort and his Death Eaters, who think of giants as inferior creatures, nothing more than tools, know exactly where these giants are. Voldemort may have a lot of knowledge of magic generally, but he has only been a corporal for 1 month, and at this point, and likely would have needed more time to discover their location, and in any case, would have had more pressing matters to deal with. The Death Eaters themselves haven't been shown to be capable of accomplishing something as difficult as locating the giants without the help of their master. Hagrid arrives after the end of Harry's fourth term, after a month long trek, 2 days of negotiations, and an uprising amongst the giants. And suddenly, Death Eaters are visiting every day. All this occurs after the valuable gift from Dumbledore were provided. All this occurs after Hagrid successfully throws off Ministry trackers. How would the Death Eaters have known where the giants were? How would they have arrived at the exact spot, hundreds of miles away in another country, at the exact time of Hagrid's negotiations? They arrived just in time to cost significant resources of Dumbledore while obtaining their objective. The most likely explanation is that when Dumbledore told Hagrid privately, Hagrid passed the information along to the Death Eaters, making them aware of the plan. Armed with this knowledge, the Death Eaters could plan their insurrection within the Giants, recruit them, and cost Dumbledore significantly. The entire expedition is a costly failure. So essentially saying, uh, with their current knowledge, with Voldemort just being back and regaining strength, there's no possible way they would know where Hagrid was going.
Plus, he was
Or get
followed.
to which he said he took the tails off of. He said he ditched the tails.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's what he says, but doesn't mean that it didn't. That he still didn't have somebody. But go ahead. That
and go, you're fine. Go ahead.
I said that he didn't see. He ditched what he knew, but there could still have been somebody else or something else
But why would they
transformed,
follow him in the first place, though?
so that they could let the Death Eaters know where he was,
But why would they follow Why would they follow Hagrid, a half giant?
because they wanted to find the locations of the giants,
But why would they
and they
assume he, as a half giant who's never at any point communicated with the giants, because he was raised by his dad after his mom left,
yep.
and he went
So
to
why was
Hogwarts. Why would they
but he
follow
was
him,
traveling because he was traveling with another giant.
who is the headmistress of another school? So why would
Okay,
she go visit giants that are shunned and frowned upon in the wizarding community?
exactly. So it's not something that should be happening. And if they take off, why wouldn't someone think it's odd and follow to see what they were doing?
Because they were dating. I'm just giving like your reason for them being followed to me just doesn't make any sense. Like it's just too they would like assuming in this, especially in this like wizarding world, which is very uh I can't think of the word I'm trying to use, but they're very being with your own type. That's a theme a lot. Uh, two half giants going on vacation wouldn't warrant them being followed, especially if the because if Hagrid is a spy for Voldemort, no one would know it. So Voldemort would still treat Hagrid as a half giant oaf who was suspended in the third year. No one would respect Hagrid, so no one would follow Hagrid. Madame Maxine, you can make the argument because she is a headmistress at another school, but again, as a half giant, they wouldn't be seen as credible threats. So it, like for a Death Eater to follow them just seems weird without
Well, it
having
just seems
prior knowledge that they were going somewhere.
well, it seems weird that you're convinced that Hagrid's a Death Eater. So there.
Well, there's more proof that they would like if he's a spy, like Voldemort wouldn't like have them follow.
But if they wanted the giants to be on their side, he's going to take any chance he can. Because in essence, who can go to the giants and has the best chance? Another giant, whether they're shunned or not.
I wasn't gonna bring this up, but because you didn't bring it up as your defense, I'm gonna give you the easy defense you could have took. So we know that some of the Death Eaters were still in the Department of Magic, the Ministry of Magic. They worked in the
Yep.
Unspeakables portions and stuff like that. They could have easily got the information on where giants, because we still know the Ministry of Magic knows roundabout areas of where giants are at to keep it protected. So they could have easily just got the information from Ministry of Magic and just went that way. And it just is a coincidence that when they got there was fighting breaking out. Big boy on. But yeah, no, this one. It like you said, it's a hard one to judge for the simple fact that it is all 100% Hagrid's recollection of the time away.
Yeah.
So everything is going to be seen through the lens that you as a viewer want to see Hagrid. So if you trust Hagrid and have no reason to speculate that he is bad, then yeah, it all makes sense. He went out with Madame Maxine together. They were being followed by the Ministry, which probably Dumbledore told them to watch out for. So they were able to ditch with probably recommendations from Dumbledore. Uh, and were able to get to the Giants. They had the Giants believe, and by giving the lead giant this trinket that would be seen as valuable, and it caused another giant to fight with him, and they lost. And this other giant wanted to be free, which is what the Death Eaters were presenting to the Giants, that they would be able to be free in Rome with Voldemort under power. So this portion is very easily, I think, defended, depending on what lens you look at it through. But that also makes it difficult because we don't know what lens J.K. Rowling is writing for Hagrid.
Yeah.
Hagrid. So
Sorry.
we're about no, you're good. We're about like 20 minutes in. I think we'll hit Half-Blood Prince as well because it's not very long.
Okay.
So that was the end of Half-Blood Prince, because the big two things is him going to the Giants.
Order of the Phoenix.
Sorry, Order of the Phoenix. It was just him going to the Giants essentially. And animals everywhere, dude.
I know. I was gonna say it's Animal Night.
So in the Half-Blood Prince, we see the following from Hagrid. Hagrid has an unhealthy relationship with Harry Potter. Hagrid systematically sabotages Harry's education. So the first piece of evidence is Hagrid's influence with Harry Potter. Hagrid has a minor role in Book 6 compared to the rest of the books. Most of the time, Hagrid is upset with the trio, seemingly over not taking his class and the impending death of Aragog. Nonetheless, we do see a highlight of the odd relationship that has developed between Harry and Hagrid. Throughout the relationship, Hagrid acts as an inappropriate manner for an adult around a child. By nurturing a codependent relationship and systematically sabotaging Harry's education year after year, making him less capable at magic and thus more susceptible to Voldemort. Hagrid is Harry's first introduction to the magical world, and the first person Harry sees as a lifeline. Hagrid proceeds to invite Harry over regularly and takes a special interest in him from the very first year. It is obvious Hagrid treats Harry, and by extension Ron and Hermione, with greater amount of attention than any of the other students. Hagrid also lets them in on secrets and doesn't snitch on them when they break rules or do things which may jeopardize their education. In fact, Hagrid encourages and even requests the trio to do things which may jeopardize not only their education but their lives. In Book 1, this is best exemplified by Hagrid, an adult and employee of Hogwarts, requesting 3 11-year-olds break curfew in order to smuggle an illegal and dangerous dragon strangers. This is an incredibly unhealthy way for an adult to behave, but Hagrid is a cool, adult to these children. They can confide in him, share information with him, and come to rely on him more consistently than any other adult. Uh, Again, Hagrid is ultimately successful in grooming the trio for later access to them and their activities. In book 2, Hagrid sends Ron and Harry off alone to the spiders in the Forbidden Forest. A very dangerous test, which would have surely resulted in their deaths if they weren't for the car showing up. In book 3, Hagrid pressures the trio to research laws regarding magical beasts when they should be studying for their classes, taking up a lot of valuable time, which could otherwise benefit their education. In book 4, Hagrid goads Harry to stay in the tournament and guilts him into action by constantly assuring him of victory. Throughout, Hagrid overlooks numerous instances of behavior which should result in punishment or even expulsion of the trio, prioritizing being a confidant to them rather than being a teacher. Now, once book 6 rolls around, we see a change. The trio aren't in his class, they aren't visiting him as much, and they aren't providing him with as much information about the hijinks they are getting up to. As a result, Hagrid has lost much of his access. Hagrid takes this poorly and acts passively aggressive towards them until they start interacting with him again. After successfully regaining their attention, he requests something from Harry, which is against the rules, breaking curfew to attend Aragog's funeral. Throughout the series, Hagrid has an unusual and unhealthy relationship with the trio. He is an adult who allows, invites, and even requests the trio to do things which distract them from their education, may cause consequences up to and including expulsion, and some are even illegal and dangerous. He never reports them. He provides them cover when they do things against the rules and is an enabler. This is not a normal way for a full-grown adult to interact with impressionable children. His actions are indicative of grooming behavior to maintain access to the trio, whom he knows are the utmost importance to both Dumbledore and Voldemort.
And when did he get? When did he get? What is the word? Expelled from teaching the dark arts.
Who?
Not the dark arts. The Hagrid. When did he couldn't do the creatures anymore?
That would be in the Order of Phoenix. They
Okay.
take
They
him out.
had him not do that.
No,
So it was
that
an
was because
adjustment.
Umbridge took him out. Umbridge took him out,
Yeah.
but he got it back in year 6.
Okay. So he was going through a transition because he lost the thing he loved when Umbridge did that. And then once she was gone and he was able to be restored in that position, that's when their relationship picked back up.
No, they still
It
had a
was
relationship all through book 5, though. Like, he didn't teach, but they were constantly out. Once he got back from his travels, they were constantly out with him by his brother, the giant. They helped take care of him. And then Hagrid has to flee because he was going to be arrested,
uh-huh.
or he gets fired, so he flees. So he's not on the Hogwarts grounds.
So that can put a damper on people being friends or being close to each other if you're not around, if you're having issues, if you're not doing the stuff you love anymore. That's where the disconnection came in from, and then it had to be rebuilt.
So you think the reason why Hagrid was pouty, moody towards Harry, Ron, and Hermione to the point of not talking to them whenever they would reach out or come by him was because he lost his teaching job for a few months? Not
He
not
was going
because.
through
Go ahead.
he was going through his own emotional time, and I don't know if he had anything else that was mentally going through his head, but he really wasn't talking to anybody during that time either. He was kind of being a solo. He was kind of being by himself. He was ignoring a lot
And then
of
how do
people.
you? Okay, so that explains for you. That explains why he was moody and so passive aggressive to them in book 6 until they decided to like be more friendly to him and like share information with him. How do you explain him constantly putting them in trouble, having them break the rules throughout the books up to this point?
It's the same thing he did. That It's what he did when he was in school. He 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 would go places he shouldn't be. That's what got him, where he saw Tom Riddle because he was somewhere he shouldn't have been. And that's why he took the blame for the, opening the chamber because he was where he shouldn't have been. So if he didn't see any wrong with it when he was in school because it was fun, why wouldn't he encourage them to explore and get everything out of the school they could?
Because he's supposed to be protecting Harry. If he's working with Dumbledore as closely as you say, to a point where he's trying to, you're saying that Dumbledore is having Hagrid feed information to Voldemort if he's a spy. Wouldn't Dumbledore express how important keeping Harry alive is? So wouldn't he not put him in these dangerous things all spying, especially in book 6 when Harry's not allowed to go do things because they're afraid of him being taken. So like he breaks out of the school to go, like, even though Harry does it on his own with the good luck potion, he still goes out to Hagrid because Hagrid told him to come help him bury the spider, which he knew was incredibly against the rules at that point, to be out after curfew and then to be out of the school in general.
But that's what he's been doing through the whole books, is just doing things that make him feel better. So if Hagrid, he with the spider, that was a big part of Hagrid, and Harry had something to do with everything because he met Aragog. Aragog scared him, but it's still, he knew how important it was to Harry or to Hagrid. So why wouldn't he?
Because at this point, like, the difference between him like having him sneak out in book 1 to help deliver the dragon, or going to the spiders in book 2, that could be like, they say Hagrid thought that they want to eat him because they were Hagrid's friends, which he was right about, but not the smaller spiders. In book 3, having them do stuff, all of that makes sense until the point Voldemort is back. And at that point, Hagrid and Dumbledore and the Order would know how real, especially with Sirius dying, the fight at the Order, everything that happened with Umbridge and everything. He would know how serious it is at this point, especially with them trying to kill Harry. He would know how serious it is. So for him to do that is fishy. When, like, they're so worried that Death Eaters, because the Death Eaters are trying to break through to the school continuously. That's why there's all kinds of protections that only Dumbledore can control. It seems weird that he would push the issue.
But he was within the boundaries of everything. If the Death Eaters would have broke in through the all of the spells and everything that was protecting the school, it wouldn't have mattered.
Why?
Because he would have been in the same amount of danger. They would have been, actually, he was safer being there because they would have went to the school. If they would have broke in, they would have went to the school to look for Harry, and he would have been out in the woods with Hagrid.
That is the most roundabout. I snuck out of the house because I smelled smoke. Yeah. And I was afraid the house was gonna light on fire one time.
Exactly.
You're people listening at home are gonna see how spotty your conclusions and your arguments for Hagrid is, and how damning this evidence is against him.
It's not damning.
It is very.
It's what. Quit swearing at your mother. It is not. It's how you are twisting it.
How am I twisting it? I didn't twist anything. This is factual information that Hagrid did.
And he didn't do anything wrong.
It is true. He is grooming these kids. Not grooming doesn't always have to be in a sexual manner. But Hagrid is grooming these kids.
Yeah, and he got them ready to face the battle in the last book. If
what
they would not be
now I need you to explain one piece of evidence that what Hagrid did to prepare them for the battle.
You have been saying it all along, all the risky things he was having them do. where he was giving them, you need to go down to the chamber. Here's what you do for there, and here is the dog Fluffy. You know, you gotta lull him to sleep with music. All of that. He was preparing them
For
for
what?
what was coming at the end. That there was ever a final battle, because everybody knew it would have the stronger Voldemort get, the more chances there were for a war.
In case you guys get into this final battle and there's this big 3-headed dog, just play him some music. I get what you're saying. Like, it maybe
that was just an example of one of the things that you keep saying Hagrid sent them into risky, dangerous times and dangerous things. That was just one example I just pulled out of my head.
I'm just like I get what you're saying. Like, you can argue maybe the fact that he by having them go into all these dangerous situations, they don't have fear anymore.
They don't have fear, and they know how to handle and think on their feet because of that. That's how Hagrid helped to get them prepared
This
for
seems
the final battle.
incredibly risky with 3 12-year-olds.
Yeah, but Dumbledore was there to watch it all happen anyway, make sure everything went okay.
Dumbledore isn't at the school in the 6th book.
No, before that, everything before. Oh my lord, you're not listening to me. Everything that happened before, the prep that was happening, Dumbledore was still there and knew what was going on.
So you're saying, specifically in the Chamber of Secrets, when they go into the Spider's Den, Dumbledore was hanging around outside in case the car didn't show up.
He didn't have to be hanging there. He could see things.
So how would he get there to save Harry and Ron from the spiders that were about to eat him? Because the spiders got pretty close.
Snap your finger. There you go. How do you know he didn't send the car?
How did you know? Wow, what a rebuttal, Mother.
I mean, it was a good point. I don't know if he sent the car.
I'm gonna tell you what. Next time the last series we do, I am not gonna smoke all day, just so I can be crabby.
Hey, you really want to admit to people that you smoke cocaine and do all that kind of stuff?
No, it snorted. No, I don't do any of that.
Well, guys, that is
awkward turtle.
Awkward. No, that is Half-Blooded Prince and the Order of the Phoenix. We have just one book left, and that is Deathly Hallows. Sorry, I said it wrong, and then my brain stopped working. So thank you guys for tuning in. As always, like, share, comment.
Yeah, I knew these two books, what you just went through, would be the hardest to you, because there's really, like you said, not a lot in either one.
Mm-hmm.
So I gave it my best shot.
Yeah, you came up with some interesting conclusions.
You're never going to hear them anywhere else. You will not hear anybody argue that ever anywhere.
That is a very valid point. You would never hear someone argue.
That Hagrid was followed, and then that Fluffy is the reason that Harry was so powerful at the end.
Hey, I mean, you gotta come up with some creative takes, because all of this information is meant to be damning to Hagrid. So you had to come up with your own perception of reality.
It's how I read the book and how I remember.
Exactly. So again, thank you guys. Make sure to follow us on Podbean or any site that you listen to podcasts on. Follow us on YouTube at Hypothetically Sound or I can't speak. It's been too long. Hypothetically Sound Gaming on TikTok, on Twitter, on Facebook. We're on it all. And until next time, deuces.
See ya.
Bye.
You don't say anything all episode, and all you say is bye.
Yeah. I'll be honest, dog. I'll explain this in the next one if I must. You see, I ain't remember these books. I think I skimmed them, and that's saying something because it's like 800 pages, and I skimmed that shit. You know what I'm saying? So like, I ain't remember nothing.